My name is Judith Geddes, and I'm 33 years old. 8 months into waiting for a kidney transplant, the hospital called me and said, "We're postponing your surgery. Your insurance has been canceled." I was already packed. My overnight bag sat by the door, shoes lined up, paperwork clipped neatly together like control was something you could organize into folders. I remember sitting on the edge of my couch, holding the phone a little too tightly, breathing slow because stress makes everything worse. That wasn't panic. That was muscle memory. And the worst part wasn't the delay. It wasn't the fear. It was that I knew exactly who did it. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to take you back to the beginning. Because this didn't start with a canceled policy. It started decades earlier in a house that looked perfectly normal from the street. I grew up in Georgia, about an hour outside Atlanta, in a quiet neighborhood with trimmed hedges, 2 cars in the driveway, and a basketball hoop nobody ever used. From the outside, it looked stable, predictable. Inside, everything ran on my father's mood. My father, Raymond Geddes, liked to call himself old school. What he really meant was that respect only flowed one direction, down. You didn't earn it, you complied. My mother, Denise, learned early that survival meant smoothing things over. She was the kind of woman who apologized when someone bumped into her, not because she was weak, but because she'd learned peace was cheaper than resistance. And then there was my younger sister, Jenna, the golden child. Jenna and I were only 2 years apart, but it felt like we were raised in 2 different families. When I got an A on a math test, Dad said I could have done better. When Jenna barely passed, the teacher was clearly biased. I was the kid who learned how to change a tire at 16 because Dad said I needed to be capable. Jenna was the kid who got brand new tires because she needed reliable transportation. There's one moment I still see like a screenshot. I was 15. I'd saved up money from mowing lawns and helping neighbors and bought a used gaming console from a senior at school. I carried it into the kitchen like it was proof that I mattered. Dad looked at it once and asked, "Where'd you get the money for that?" "I worked for it," I said. He didn't smile. Instead, he walked into the living room, called Jenna over, pulled 2 crisp 20s from his wallet, and handed them to her. "Go get yourself something too," he said. "Don't be jealous of your sister." Jenna wasn't jealous. She was smug. That was the day I learned something I didn't yet have words for. In our house, my effort wasn't something to celebrate. It was something to exploit. There was only one person who ever said that out loud. My Aunt Lorraine, my mom's older sister. She lived in Atlanta, ran a small bookkeeping business, and watched family gatherings the way an accountant watches a ledger. Quietly, carefully. She wasn't loud, she wasn't dramatic. She'd just say later, "That didn't sit right with me." When I was 17, I got a part-time job at an electronics store. I liked it immediately. Not because I loved selling TVs, but because I liked solving problems. I liked helping people without making them feel stupid. Dad hated it. He wanted me in a trade he could brag about, something tough, something that sounded impressive when he told other men about it. I stayed anyway. After high school, I didn't go away to some 4-year college with dorms and parties. I stayed close, took classes on and off at a community college, and worked full-time. When I moved into a small apartment in Atlanta at 22, it felt like breathing for the first time. That's when my health started becoming my whole life. I'd always been the skinny kid, always tired, always swelling after long shifts. I told myself I just needed more sleep, more discipline, more grit. Until one morning, I stood up from my bed and everything went black for a second. I woke up on the carpet with my cheek pressed into it, like someone had hit a reset button. Urgent care turned into specialists. Specialists turned into a nephrologist, using calm words that didn't feel calm at all. Chronic kidney disease. Not a maybe, not a warning, a reality. At first, I tried to keep it quiet. In my family, vulnerability wasn't met with care. It was met with commentary. When Dad found out, he didn't hug me. He didn't ask how I felt. He said, "What did you do to yourself?" Jenna treated my diagnosis like a new way to earn praise. She'd say things like, I'd donate if I could, but I can't miss work. She wasn't working at the time. Still, I kept showing up. I kept being responsible. I kept hoping that if I did enough, I'd finally earn love without conditions. My adult life became a mix of normal work and medical math. I sold electronics at a mid-sized store in Atlanta, and I was good at it. Customers asked for me by name because I actually listened. But dialysis and appointments aren't cheap. And time off isn't free when your body is already charging interest. That's when my dad offered what he framed as generosity. I was still on his insurance plan through his job. He'd been there long enough to have decent coverage, and keeping me on it for a while was possible. He sat me down and said, "I'll keep you on my plan. You'll pay me back for the extra premium. That's fair." I was scared. I was exhausted. I wanted stability, so I agreed. At first, it was $280 a month, then $325, then $400 because you don't understand how benefits work. Every time I asked for paperwork, Dad got offended. "Do you not trust me?" I paid anyway. I set up a monthly transfer and wrote insurance in the memo line like it was a prayer. I didn't realize I'd basically handed him a remote control, and I had no idea how far he was willing to go to prove he still had power over me. Once my father realized he controlled my insurance, everything else became negotiable, or rather, everything about my life did. The money was supposed to be simple, a fixed monthly payment, just enough to cover the extra premium. That's how he framed it, like a favor with a receipt. But the numbers never stayed still. 2 months after I agreed, he told me rates had gone up. Then it was, benefits changed. Then, you don't understand how insurance works, Judith. Every explanation came without paperwork. Every question I asked sounded like an accusation to him. "Do you not trust me?" he'd say, his voice already sharpening. So I stopped asking. I set up an automatic transfer. Same day, every month. Same memo line, insurance. I treated it like rent for staying alive. Around that time, I started dating Evan. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't dramatic. He worked in logistics, liked quiet mornings, and noticed things most people missed, like when I was too tired to finish a sentence, or when my hands shook slightly after dialysis. I didn't tell him everything at first. Old habits die hard. But he noticed the pattern anyway. "Why does your dad handle your insurance?" he asked one night. Not accusing, just genuinely confused. I shrugged. "It's easier." He didn't argue. He just nodded in a way that told me he didn't believe that was the same thing as healthy. Meanwhile, Jenna's life was a constant emergency. She needed help with rent. She needed help with her car. She needed help because she was between things again. Every crisis landed the same way, on me. My parents never asked directly at first. They softened it, framed it, let it hover in the air like a test. Then Dad would say it plainly. "You can help. You have savings." One Sunday afternoon stands out more than the others. I had dialysis the next morning. I was already foggy, already tired in that bone-deep way that sleep doesn't fix. Dad sat at the kitchen table like he was about to discuss the weather. "Jenna's transmission blew," he said. "She needs $2,000. I told him I didn't have $2,000 just sitting around. He smiled, slow, knowing. "You have a savings account." "That's for medical stuff," I said. He leaned forward. "This is family stuff." That sentence followed me for years. I sent $1,200. I kept the rest. I felt guilty anyway. Another time, my mom called crying because the water heater died. I paid $950 for a replacement. 2 weeks later, Jenna posted photos from a club with a caption about celebrating life. I swallowed it again because I still believed, somewhere deep down, that if I did enough, they'd stop asking. Or maybe they'd finally see me. Then life shifted. 8 months into waiting, I got the call that mattered. A kidney became available. Not a promise, but movement. The hospital scheduled me. The coordinator spoke in that calm, practiced voice that tries not to scare you. I took time off work. I arranged a ride. I cleaned my apartment like tidying up was a way to control fate. 2 days before surgery, my dad called. Jenna had gotten into trouble again. She'd signed a lease she couldn't afford. Her roommate was leaving. She needed someone to co-sign or she'd be homeless. "You're going to co-sign," Dad said. "Your credit is good." I didn't yell. I didn't insult Jenna. I said, "I can't." Silence. "I have surgery. I have medical bills. I can't be on the hook for her rent." That was when his voice changed. "So you're choosing yourself over family?" "Yes," I said. This time I didn't soften it. Another pause. Longer. "Fine," he said. "Learn what that feels like." He hung up. I went to bed thinking he'd just send guilt texts, that my mom would call and do her "let's calm everyone down" routine. Instead, the next afternoon, the hospital called me. "Judith," the coordinator said carefully, "we need to talk about your insurance coverage." I gripped the edge of my couch until my knuckles went white. "What about it?" "We ran final authorization. Your policy is showing as canceled, effective immediately." "Canceled by who?" A pause. "It shows as terminated by the primary policyholder. 8 months of waiting. A donor organ, a surgery date, and my father had reached into my life and pulled the plug, like turning off a light to prove a point." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I said very calmly, "Okay, don't release the organ yet. Give me 10 minutes. She hesitated. "Judith, we can't hold. Just give me 10 minutes. Then I called my lawyer. When my lawyer answered, it was only the second ring. That alone told me how serious this was. "I need you to listen carefully," I said. My voice sounded calm, almost detached, like I was reporting someone else's emergency. "My dad canceled my insurance. The hospital just postponed my kidney transplant." There was a pause on the line. Not confusion, calculation. "Do you have the cancellation notice?" Priya Desai asked. "Not yet." "You will," she said. "Check your email in 5 minutes. Don't call your father. Don't warn him. We move fast." I did exactly what she said. I put the phone down, opened my laptop, and waited. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. That's something my father never understood about me. He thought calm meant weak. Calm was how I survived. Within minutes, the email came through. "Policy terminated. Effective immediately." I forwarded it to Priya. She was already on the phone with the insurance escalation team when my Aunt Lorraine pulled into my parking lot. She didn't knock. She used the spare key I'd given her years earlier, just in case. One look at my face and she said, "He finally did it." I nodded. While Priya worked the phones, I stayed on hold with the transplant coordinator. Lorraine took my phone and started going through old texts, payment records, screenshots, anything that showed a pattern. She moved fast, methodical, like this was what she'd been preparing for without ever saying it out loud. Then Priya came back on the line. "Judith," she said slowly, "how did your father access your insurance account?" "He didn't," I said automatically. There was a beat. "The cancellation was initiated using your login credentials." My stomach dropped. "That doesn't make sense," I said. "I was at work." "I know," she replied. "That's why this matters." The login timestamp came from my parents' home internet. Security footage from my store showed me on the sales floor at the exact time the cancellation went through. But that wasn't the worst part. The password reset confirmation had been sent to a phone number I hadn't used in years, my father's. He'd added it early on, back when I first got sick. He'd insisted it was just in case. I never thought to remove it. He didn't just cancel my insurance. He set it up so he could later claim I'd done it myself. Priya didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "This is unauthorized access," she said. "At minimum, identity misuse, potentially insurance fraud. And because this interfered with life-saving medical care, it's serious." I closed my eyes. 8 months of waiting. 8 months of careful living. And he was willing to risk all of it. Because I said no. Priya filed an emergency request to reinstate the policy. She contacted the hospital's legal liaison. Lorraine sat beside me, her hand firm on my arm, grounding me when my thoughts started to spin. By that evening, the insurance was temporarily reinstated. Not perfect, not clean, but enough. I got the transplant. When I woke up, sore and groggy and very much alive, one thought cut through the fog with absolute clarity. My father tried to kill me to teach me a lesson. Recovery was slow, painful, quiet. But the evidence was clean. The cancellation came from my parents' home internet. The password reset went to my father's phone. The timing proved I couldn't have done it. Priya laid out my options: civil action, criminal referral, documentation, boundaries. I didn't hesitate. A month later, my father invited everyone to his birthday dinner. He stood at the head of the table, smiling too wide, talking about miracles, about family loyalty, about how proud he was. I waited. When there was a pause, I said calmly, "Dad, can you tell everyone why the hospital postponed my transplant?" The room went still. I slid a folder across the table. "Raymond," I continued evenly, "the cancellation was done from your home internet using my account access. We have the logs, the timestamps." Jenna's face drained of color. My father exploded, called it a private family matter, accused me of disrespect, said I needed to learn consequences. Then he stopped, because he realized what he'd just admitted. No one defended him. We paid and left. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't storm out. I just walked away. After that dinner, the messages started immediately. Not about my health, not about the surgery, not even about whether I was okay. They were about family. My mom called first. Her voice was careful, fragile, like she was stepping across broken glass. "Judith, your father didn't mean for things to go this far." I didn't argue. I didn't ask her to explain what "this far" meant, because we both knew. I said quietly, "Mom, he canceled my insurance 2 days before a transplant." She went silent. Then came Jenna's text. "You didn't have to embarrass Dad like that. This could have been handled privately." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. He already handled it privately, with my life. I didn't send anything else. My father left a voicemail that night. It was long, furious, full of rage and guilt twisted together. He accused me of betrayal, of ingratitude, of turning family into enemies. He said, "You think you can say no and still get benefits?" I forwarded the voicemail to Priya and blocked his number. The legal process took months. It was slow, real, grounded in documentation and timestamps and intent. The district attorney charged my father with identity-related unauthorized access and insurance fraud. Because this involved medical interference, it wasn't something they could brush aside. People asked me how I felt about it. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt finished. Letting someone face consequences after a lifetime of avoiding them isn't cruelty, it's balance. With Priya's help, I dismantled every point of access my father ever had. I got my own insurance, removed all authorizations, froze my credit, documented every payment I'd ever made. When relatives tried to argue, "But he's your dad," I gave them Priya's number. And then I muted them. My relationship with my mother didn't end. It just became smaller, more honest. She admitted, quietly, that she'd always known my father used money and access to control people. She just never thought he'd do it to me. Neither did I. Evan stayed. He didn't push, he didn't rescue. He just showed up. After appointments, after bad days, after nights when sleep wouldn't come. He never once asked me to forgive anyone for his comfort. That mattered more than he probably knows. Now my life is quieter. I still sell electronics. I still live in a small apartment in Atlanta. I have a balcony with a tiny herb garden that reminds me I'm allowed to grow things without someone taking credit for them. My father lost his power over me. Not because I fought harder, but because I stopped playing by rules designed to keep me small. One night, months later, I was signing paperwork with only my name on it. An unknown number called. I let it go to voicemail. I looked around my apartment, at my plans, at my life. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something steady. Peace. Walking away wasn't revenge. It was survival. Real family is built on respect, not DNA. And now, I get to choose who has a place in my life.